Hello and welcome back to Desire Dialogues. This is another episode in our series for sex ed for adults. All right, let's talk about one of the biggest misconceptions adults have about sex. The idea that arousal should happen instantly, like a light switch. You're either on or you're off, in the mood or you're not, ready or not ready. And if your body doesn't immediately cooperate, well, maybe something's wrong. Maybe you have low libido. Maybe you're not attracted to your partner. Maybe you're broken. And what if the problem is that none of us were taught to expect a microwave when our bodies actually work more like crock pots? Because one of the most important things we were not taught was that arousal is a process. It's not a switch. So the myth we were given was that desire and arousal happen very quickly. You feel desire, you become physically ready, sex happens, the end. But that is not how bodies work, especially in long-term relationships, especially after children, especially after, we age, under stress, when life is full, because bodies don't exist in a vacuum. Bodies exist in context. And context really matters, right? So we expect our bodies to work like microwaves, right? You think about it, right? People expect arousal to work like this. Beep, ready, instant. Or maybe even better, like a sunrise, right? You don't flip a switch and suddenly it's noon. It unfolds slowly, gradually, and sometimes imperceptibly. And yet we treat ourselves like something's wrong if we aren't ready immediately. But, no one's yelling at the sun for taking its time, right? Your brain is your largest sex organ, okay? One thing sex ed rarely teaches is that arousal begins in the brain. Not the genitals, not the bedroom, not with the lingerie, the brain. The brain is constantly asking, am I present? Am I worried? Am I distracted? Am I relaxed? Am I resentful? Because stress and desire, really, they make terrible fucking roommates. And if your nervous system feels like it's fighting off 11 other problems, it's going to make sense that sex isn't really at the top of the priority list. Your body isn't betraying you, it is prioritizing. So, when we think of arousal as a car, this is what we're going to talk about today. So sex educator, Dr. Emily Nagoski, incredible book, Come As You Are. It's going to popularize the concept of accelerator and brakes. This is referred to as the dual control model, okay? So if you think of it driving like a car, all right, the accelerators are the things that help turn you on. Things like anticipation, playfulness, feeling desired, affection, laughter, emotional connection. And then your brakes are things that are going to slow you down, right? They turn you off. Stress, resentment, kids knocking on the door, worrying about your body image, the unfinished chores, feeling rushed, anxiety, and many more, right? Here's the thing, most people spend years trying to press harder on the accelerator without realizing that their foot is firmly on the brake. So, my friends, something fascinating is that physical arousal and mental arousal don't always match, okay? Your body and your mind don't always speak the same language. Researchers call this arousal non-concordance. And that's going to mean you can feel mentally interested, but not experience much physical response. And you can experience physical response without mentally wanting sex. So, lube does not always equal desire. An erection does not always equal desire. And the absence of those things doesn't automatically mean that you don't want sex. Bodies are weird, right? And wonderfully human. So also, foreplay isn't 5 minutes, okay? Let's retire the idea that foreplay is just a few minutes. Because foreplay isn't a warm-up act, it's a process. And for many people, it is an absolute fucking requirement. And it can start long before anyone gets naked. It can start with having enough time. enjoying a nice bath or shower, decompressing from work back to baseline, then being invited into desire, right? It's, pressure doesn't work that way, right? You want to feel like a person instead of another responsibility. You can't rush arousal any more that you can rush grief, sleep, trust, right? Things unfold when they unfold. So, research suggests that many women need 20 to 40 minutes to reach full arousal, okay? And yet many studies that involve sexual encounters involve less than 10 minutes of foreplay. And then people wonder why things don't feel amazing. That's like trying to bake cookies for 3 minutes but being disappointed that they're still raw. Or planting seeds and getting angry because there's no garden by Tuesday when you planted the seeds on Sunday. You're not failing. What if you're just rushing? So, self-consciousness pulls us out of sensation, right? That pressure. Why isn't it happening? What's wrong with me? Why am I taking so long to get wet and ready? And you're monitoring yourself instead of experiencing yourself, right? And I think one of the saddest things I hear is, I just don't work anymore. And honestly, most of the time, that's not true. You're exhausted. You're stressed. You're overstimulated. And you're disconnected. And you're carrying a shit ton of invisible mental loads. Or you're expecting your body to behave like a machine or like it did 20 years ago instead of something living and something responsive and something that has evolved to need different things. So instead of asking, why am I not turned on yet? You could ask, what helps my body feel open? What conditions and contexts allow arousal to unfold for me? Because that's a very different question, right? One assumes failure, the other is going to assume wisdom. And bodies are often much wiser than we give them credit for. So if no one's ever told you before, let me be the one. You do not have to become instantly aroused to be normal. You do not have to function like a machine. You're not behind, right? Arousal isn't a switch. It's a process. More like a sunrise than a light bulb. And maybe your body isn't asking you to hurry. Maybe it's asking you to listen. And if you've ever found yourself asking, okay, well, what do I desire now? What are my brakes? What are my accelerators, right? What's my gas pedal? I created a free resource down in the show notes to help you understand your desire better, right? To become more curious about how you work now. Not, the goal isn't to force yourself to be different. So, until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate with yourself, and remember, pleasure is your birthright.